What's up YouTube? This is Low2. Here we are. We're doing the thing. You've probably heard Coldplay's song Midnight. It's one of those tracks that just takes you on a soul journey, you know? If you've heard it, you know. I wanted to kind of just give it my own little spin, add a little bit of energy to it, give it a little like dance house vibe. I don't really know what genre you would technically call this, maybe just dance music. Not a pro, not an expert, but I do want to just give a little bit of a boost to people who are trying to get into music production and just kind of break down my process and show you guys how I write music. I'm going to teach you how I made it. I'm just going to go through every single piece of the song, every instrument, every section, and just tell you exactly what I did. And I'm just going to try and help someone somewhere. There are a few things you need before diving into this video. Number one, Logic Pro. That is the software I produce in. I don't know anything about Ableton. I've heard great things, but I'm a Logic girly at heart. I highly recommend you have Splice. So if you don't already have that, it's $10 a month. It is so worth it. Get it, download it, do the thing. Number three, a MIDI keyboard. If you don't have a MIDI keyboard, I recommend getting one. You can produce music without a MIDI keyboard. I think there are some for 80 bucks on Amazon. I think that's it. I really want this to feel like you're sitting down with me. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM, drop a comment. So that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and dive in. So here's the track as a whole. It looks kind of a bit messy, but you know, it's organized chaos. This makes perfect sense to my brain. I know where everything is, and I don't always even color code things. I often do. If I'm like gonna release a song, I'll color code it. Sometimes I don't even need to, and I still know where everything is if nothing is labeled and nothing is color coded. It's a bit psychotic. My brain just gets it, and I'm usually a pretty neat, organized person, and with some of these projects I open them and I'm like, I probably look like I need help. So anyway, here's the project start to finish. I will try and go through in the order that I wrote it. So I wrote the pre-drop first, and this is just actually my favorite part of any song is the build-up. I think it's where people's hearts start like racing and you start feeling the music more and just kind of like getting into the vibe. And of course everyone loves the drop and whatever, but like it's so fun to hear how artists build up to a drop, because like a high energy drop is not that hard to make. A build up that takes you on a journey to get you there is a different story. So that is my favorite part of songs. So I make that first usually, like with any song I'm producing, that's usually the part I create first. So I'm gonna press play. Here is just basically the extracted vocal that I used, and you just go to YouTube, download a song. I didn't use just the acapellas. There aren't just acapellas for this song. So it is the whole entire song with all of Coldplay's instruments, plus all of my instruments. So here's what we're working with. And then for the first verse, there are vocals in it, of course. We'll just single these out. So I did add some effects to these. The effects I used, and the reason why they're layered, is one of them has like sidechaining, which is like a pumpy, like volume goes out on the kick and comes back in between, and then out on the kick to like emphasize that there's like a beat to a song. And then on this one, I have a bit of reverb, it looks like, and an amp. So this one by itself sounds like this. So you can tell it's being put through an amp. I'll turn the amp off for a second so you can hear the difference. And I'll turn the reverb off for a second so you can hear with nothing. It's still beautiful. But this is more my vibe. I really wanted to like make it sound like it was going through some sort of machine that was doing something. Okay, so those are the vocals. So I'll walk you through the song from start to finish, but I usually do make the pre-drop first. Here's an intro. So obviously there's vocals and he just repeats in the dark. So I picked the vocal chops later into my song journey, but I just kind of like, I had this going. I'll just keep this on repeat and just tried to decide some of the chords. You can play with it. So I'm gonna duplicate this bass channel and mute this one and just show you the different options that I was working with, and I'm gonna use metronome to help me kind of clock. So you can hear there's no chords yet. And you can just kind of mess with it, like whatever you think. And I've got my keyboard here. Just keep doing that. So there's so many things that you could do, and to be honest, it's overwhelming. So I had a few different chord sequences that I liked, and I ultimately just ended up picking this one, which the track is in the key of C sharp, so it's kind of like F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and then that repeats, and that's for the intro and the drop. And then my second chord sequence that I pick is over here. Here's the second set of chords I chose, and this is for the drop and the pre-drop, or the build-up. So this is D sharp, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. So I use two different sets of chords in different parts of the songs rather than the whole song repeat the same chords over and over. Mix it up a little bit. An intro to a song is usually like 32 counts. So this is 32 counts here. And you can hear with the metronome. 6, 7, 8, and it repeats a few times. So after 32 counts, you want it to kind of like fade into the rest of, or the verse, I guess. On Splice, I found a little kind of cymbal sweeper. If you type in sweep or sweeper in Splice, it'll give you this kind of stuff. And I just introduced the kick right away. I was like, there isn't a kick right away in the actual song. Like, let's just give it energy from the get-go. So this is the kick. You can see the bass chords. So for the melody, you can hear the little do-do-do-do-do-do. just felt like it needed something, you know? And the original melody in the song, there's a piano melody in it. I tried just doing more pianos with the same melody. I found it uninteresting. I think it just needed a little bit of my own touch, so I just messed around. This is actually the same as the bass. This bass comes with Logic Pro. It's called thumb bass. So if you actually just go to create new software instrument, new empty channel strip, over in bass, there's a thumb bass here. This thing is nice. And what I normally do, let's see what I did to this one. I think I added reverb. Yeah, I added my Blackhole reverb. And you can sidechain it a little bit if you want to, and I will show you how to do that later. But basically, this bass is good. So my melody pluck is actually just this bass, really, really high up, like high notes of this bass, and it just turned out. And I added reverb and echo. So if you hear without the echo, and then when you hear it with the echo, and all I did was you go here, click, go down to, let's see, delay, echo, and pick either stereo or dual mono. I think dual mono is better. I don't know. So then it echoes, and I like the reverb too, because without reverb, it's pretty boring. I just love reverb. I put reverb on everything, all my songs that sound like you are underwater, and I love it. It's just my style. So yeah, and then the melody, once it gets closer to the drop, changes a bit, but I'm just gonna play the verse for you so that you can hear all the elements and see them as it goes through. Pretty much all that's going on here is like kick, bass, melody, and the vocals. And then I just have kind of an in-between between the first verse and the pre-drop, the build-up, because I just felt like it needed it. That's not very typical, but... And then this chord stays the same for a little bit here. And then here's the build-up. So here's what I've got going on here. Pretty much this part of the Coldplay song has no vocals. It has the original melody and stuff, and so that is going the whole time. I'm just gonna loop this so that we can keep listening to it. And then at this point, when I created the beginning of the song, I was like, the build-up sounds great, but it needs a melody. And I couldn't find an instrument. I couldn't find an instrument where the melody made sense. Like, I needed the melody to be through the vocals. So I was like, what does he say that could sound nice if I put a little bit of like ambient reverb to it? I obviously chose like him just saying "in the dark" over and over. So it just needed a little bit of that. So I think I had it at like 56%. Mixed with the ambient reverbed one, it punches through a bit more, which is necessary. So we've got the song, we've got the vocals. Next up, I really thought it needed some little droney sounds, and drone sounds are one of my signatures too. I mean, there are a lot of artists' signatures, but I freaking love drone sounds. I love an ambient, just kind of like glistening, freaking meditative whatever in the background. And I think it adds depth to the song too. So there's two that I used. This one I found on Splice. Splice, just type in drone or pad or ambient pad or something like that, and you will find tons of these. I'll turn the volume up on this. Obsessed. And then DIY pad or drone sound. This is part of the Coldplay song, and I just cut it, split it, blended them together, and put sidechain on it. Sidechain, okay, let's talk about sidechain for 2 seconds. Sidechain is 10 million % necessary when you're trying to make a dancey, pumpy song that has energy. Listen to it with the sidechain. Now listen to it without. Like, okay. Sidechain is so necessary. And same with this drone sound. I'm going to show you what it is like with and without. I think I add, you can hear it pumping. Boring. We want it to pump. When it doesn't pump, I'm bored. So what I use is Kickstart, and that is a Nicky Ramiro plugin. I do think I paid for it. I think I paid like $20, and I use it in every song, almost every instrument. So I've gotten my money's worth with this thing. Highly recommend going and getting that. There, you can also manually sidechain. If you don't have any money, don't worry. You can go into the compressor, and it's just a little trickier. I'm not actually going to show you fully how to do it. There are tutorials on how to do it. But you go to Dynamics Compressor, and you can basically link any sound with your kick, and it will punch your kick through and do it. Like, it takes longer. It's more tedious to do it that way, but you can sidechain without having to buy a plugin. So just know that Kickstart is great. And when you open Kickstart, it looks like this, and there's tons of different sidechains you can use to like cut out the sound at different times. And you can even slide it around if you're not exactly happy, if it's like not right on the beat, you want it on the beat, you can slide it around. So I just can't recommend this plugin enough. I would get it right now if I were you. Not sponsored. But if they want to sponsor me, that'd be great. Okay, so yeah, here's what the drone sounds sound like together. I guess I didn't show you this one yet. So this is just part of Coldplay's song. And the reason why it's getting like louder and like more like E is because I automated it. So automation, oh, there's so much to teach you guys. Automation is when you decide what frequencies or what volume level or whatever is going to come through at different times. So I can literally make it so that it's like lower frequencies, and then it just keeps climbing and climbing. And I can also do that with the volume. Like if I wanted to make the volume lower and you can't hear shit, and then all of a sudden just like really loud. Like I can automate it. So I obviously don't want to do that. Let's undo that. So automation is great. And the way you automate things is by, this is what it looks like normally, right? You push A, and then this is how you automate things. So whatever plugins you've used, like I have my reverb, my amp, all of the things that I've used, including my volume. You can go in and choose which aspect of it you want to automate. So for example, if I want to automate just like one specific part of the reverb, so that like the reverb is all there, but like a specific gravity level or something is coming through gradually over time, you can do that. Automation is where music production gets really tedious, but that's where it starts sounding good, is when you know how to automate things and it's just mixing it properly. So I guess I could zoom out so you could see all the automation. There's kind of a lot, and a lot of this is just volume, but there's several automations for each one in some of these. So like this one, well, let's see. This one has 2 different automations. So the volume changes and the high frequencies change. And then this one, same thing. Well, that actually looks like the volume stays the same. Automation is just so fun. You can manipulate anything to sound the way you want it to. And like, for example, you see all this craziness. Let's just solo just this, so that you can hear what is happening. And this looks like it's the sidechain mix. So sidechain is building right now. So yeah, automation is great. Anyway, where was I? Let's go back here. So to go from the verse to the pre-drop, you gotta give it some like, whoosh, you know? You gotta give it some energy. So I have 4 different things giving it energy. 5 actually. I would say the melodic pluck gives it energy too, but let's just listen to this and then I'll go through each one. So you hear obviously like the energy builds and then it's like whoosh. So I do have a couple sweeps. So like I said, Splice is so amazing. Here are the sweeps. I'm not hiding the names of them. You could type this in and find these exact sweeps. And then the vocal is actually also from Splice, but I cropped it, retuned it, and reversed it so it sounds nothing like the original. But here's the vocal. And then with the sweeps, it sounds like this. And I kind of needed a little like, you know, so I added just like one deep kick, which has reverb and a like really low frequencies. Impact. I love impact. And then I think the melody pluck also adds to it as well. It just kind of lets you know like, okay, we're about to start building the energy up in here. So yeah, it transitions into the build-up. Got bass, and the bass notes are kind of like higher. And then it'll get lower as it gets closer to the drop. And the way that it gets lower is I add more bass. So the entire build up, let's see, the entire build up is this. And so after a certain point, second part of the build up, it needs like a bit more oomph. You know what I'm saying? Okay. For the melody plucks, You can hear obviously that it's just like do 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 do. And then it does it again. And then towards the second half of the build-up, you need more instruments and more energy starting to build before the song actually drops. So I doubled up on that, but I made one even higher. So it's the exact same notes and everything, but one is just an octave higher. Yeah, it's plucking, it's doing the plucky thing. And as it keeps building, let's just listen to the second half of the build now. You can hear I start to introduce some hi-hats and shakers so that it's like start to hear them come in. Okay. How, again, do you kind of build the shakers up rather than just introduce them and be like, you know, you don't want to do that. You automate. So this is automated to have it starts at 3,000 hertz and it goes all the way up by the time the song drops to almost 20,000 hertz. And same with this one. This one also starts at about 3,000 hertz and builds up to 10,000. So you don't really need to mess with the volume. Sometimes I mess with the volume on them. This one I just did, yeah, I did mess with the volume on this one. You don't always need to. It can be the same volume and the change in hertz will make it appear like it's becoming louder because the frequencies start coming through that weren't otherwise coming through. So it actually is getting louder just because you're automating it with the frequencies. So how to automate it with high frequencies. Let's just do this for a second. This is interesting. Here's your EQ. Click on it. All you need to do is tap this. It's either on or off. If it's on, you're good. You don't need to move it. And then go here, go to channel EQ, high cut frequency. When you're in high cut frequency, that's when you get a straight blue line and you can dot anywhere on the blue line and drag up and down and you will hear what starts to happen. If I just have this right at 20,000, all the frequencies are coming through. And then it gets lower. And then back up. Cut it too much, they just completely all exit. So that's how you automate. And you can do the same thing with low cut frequencies if you're looking to kind of like bring in a bass or something, you know, on the other end of the frequencies, you can do that as well. So it's great. I love automation. I love everything. Okay, I love music. Here we go. So I'm gonna play the build up one more time. Okay, so I did add some little vocal chops, it seems like. This one is just like, and I don't know why I did that. You can probably kind of hear it. You know, it kind of does that. You can barely hear it. This is also Coldplay just doing some note, and I just like made it, transpose it up 12, which when you transpose something, it means you're just upping the notes. 12 is a whole octave. So I think he was like, in the dark, and I just made it. You know what I mean? Like he's now squealing. Let me put it back at 0 and see what it was originally. Yeah, leave. He's like saying leave. And I put it at 12, and now he's saying, which I think sounds kind of pretty. And I added, of course, like a lot of reverb and echo, so it's like leave, 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 leave. So here's how it sounds in the song. And then the drop. Drops over, and then just keeping the energy going into the next So let's talk about, it's a very similar setup. What I do with the sweeps to get you to the pre-drop and the drop on this. I didn't want like too many cymbals and crashes and stuff, so it's kind of just like I added this whoosh sound. That kind of gives it a bit of like, here we go, you know? Subtle, but you can hear it. And then type in crash to Splice. Oops. So that's a crash. And then the way that you get it to pump, which you do kind of want it to pump, is through the Kickstart sidechain. If it doesn't pump, it kind of takes away from the energy of the original drop. Like I'll show you. Here's what it sounds like without versus with. So I don't know, subtle things like that make a difference because you want the kicks to come through when it first drops. You really do. So if I don't have it kick-started, it just slightly, if you do that a few times with a few different things, it takes away from the actual energy of the drop itself. So, okay, now I'm just gonna go through and show you all the drums one at a time. Here's the main drum loop that I found on Splice. Like, let's fucking go. Easy peasy. The second I heard it, I was like, I wanna use this. Let me turn off that. I'm just going to show you the drums. So this is the first one. Let me loop this. By the way, if you drag this on the top, wherever it's yellow, it's just going to keep repeating. If you didn't already know that. Here's the second one. Kick. Shaker. Another shaker. With different frequencies, a different kind of shaker. Hi-hats. Different kinds of hi-hats. You don't need a bunch of the same instrument layered on top of each other. If I do two different hi-hats, it's usually for a reason. Like this one sounds like a shaker, almost like a maraca. And this one sounds like, you know, someone tapping on a cymbal on a drum set. So let me just... You can hear those hi-hats like pinch through, punch through. And you need them to punch through. Like punching through it's important. You don't want it to sound too muffled. I've had songs that sound pretty muffled. Not fun. So then, yeah, you add the bass chords. I have 3 different basses here, which is a bit excessive. I love my bass. I love bass. 3 is a lot, but I think it sounds kind of cool. 8, 8, 8, 8. The drone sounds. And then in the drop, I really like in the part of Midnight where Coldplay's like, it's my favorite part. Okay, so I decided instead of like finding some melody or doing like in the dark, like through the drop also, I'm like, we need a break from that. Like he says in the dark 47 times already. We could take a break. So pretty much the melody in the drop is simply this. And again, I have an OTT on that to kind of punch through. And obviously full amount of Kickstart. Yeah, I have a lot of punchiness, and then same with this one actually. Like we want full Kickstart. This is a max 100% sidechain that can possibly be done with Kickstart. And it's why the drop sounds so bouncy. I almost want to just take Kickstart off everything and you'll be like, I'm not going to do that because I might actually vomit. I just love sidechain. So here's what these sound like together. And then I forgot to tell you guys, I for the drone sound here, I use something called Action Tremolo. I'm sorry, I probably just butchered that. And it's basically like a Stutterhouse plugin. Stutterhouse is in, you know, and it's free. So I found this, and you can mess with these two different settings. I really don't know music production that well. I don't know what they do. I don't know what it means. But I know that I like the square more because it's like really like pumpy. And then when I do double square, I don't like it as much. Like it's in one ear out the other, kind of like it goes back and forth too much. So I like the saw. And then this kind of just like, so the way it still pumps is sidechain. Again, I still keep the melody, the bass, and all of those drums. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's fairly simple. You need pumpiness. You need bass. I prefer lots. You need good drums. And you need it to like build and then crash into it. So here's again what the build up sounds like going into the drop. And you can hear that Coldplay vocal like punching through. And the reason I cut it off here, as you can probably hear, it just stops like 4 counts too early. Because I did this, which I think, let's see exactly what I did. I reverbed it so that it fades into the next part of the song better. So it's gonna like echo a bit more and just kind of drag into it. So let's see what it sounds like transitioning from the drop into the next verse. So again, this is 64 counts. Each verse is 64 counts. In this 64 counts, the first half has a certain amount of energy. I always like for the second half to have a little bit more energy even. And the only thing I needed to do really was, looks like I did 2 things. I probably, let's see, I think I automated in this drone sound. Let's see how I did it. Yeah, I automated in the drone sound so it starts to get louder again to get you ready for the build-up. And I added a hi-hat. So those 2 things alone are all you need to like just keep the energy like interesting in the second half of the verse. And they're subtle, but you don't want to add a bunch more in the second half of a verse. You want to keep a verse fairly consistent. So there's that vocal again. In order to transition from the drop into the next verse, it's just a sweep, that same vocal, and then it looks like some sort of clap. Yeah, some sort of clap, like I'll turn on the metronome so you can hear. And I like the way that sounds, how it's not actually on the beat, but it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, click, boom. I don't know why I like that. I don't know why I did that. I just think it sounds cool. It's like not what you would expect. Something different. So yeah, not a whole lot of cymbals and crashes and stuff, just enough to transition. And then I keep the main drums and the kick, and I get rid of this one and all of the shakers and hi-hats. So I'll let you listen to it one more time. you still have the hi-hats that are in the main drum loop, but you don't have like all this other chaos, because if I had all this other chaos in there, it would just still sound like the frickin' drop. Like, it just would. It's too much. It's too much. So yeah, I like it kind of just calm down. Like, calm down, you're okay. You're okay. But like, don't stop. You know what I mean? Hi-hat. And then the drone sound very faintly is like starting to come in. I don't know if you can hear it. Okay. So then again, transitioning into the next, let's see, I don't know if it's called like a pre-drop or a build-up. Let's call it the build-up. Into the next build-up, I only use one sweep and then that like big like oomph kick. It just, we already know that it's gonna happen, so I didn't need it to have the vocal again. I don't know, that was just a choice I made, because I'm gonna put the vocal into the second half of the build-up rather than at the beginning. So now let me play this through. See everything. No drums, no kicks, nothing. For the first 32 counts of the build-up. Now I introduce drums. Feel the energy building. The drone is getting louder. I added the other drone, the like pumpy drone. Okay. So here's what I did here. I cut all of this. It's just one little part of the song that I liked that I just like, it's now just replaying. I think it's the same as this. It is the same as this. The difference is this has the like pumpy stutter house, and I changed the key, which sounds like better when you're building up. So there's just so much going on with the vocals, but I think it works. In my opinion, it works. This part, I love when he does that. So I added just reverb, and then I EQ'd it so that the high frequencies do not come through. Let me just single out this little part right here. Here's what it could sound like. But I like it like that. Gotta sound underwater, you know? So I do that twice. So yeah, the reason this is only in the first half of the build-up is because I amplify it, give it the side chain, give it all the things for the second half down here. This is just the vocals. We got the bass. The keys are coming through. No, we're good on keys. And then here's that vocal transitions the first half of the build-up into the second half. You could hear it. And then I don't know why I did like some kids laughing. I thought it felt nostalgic or whatever. So now energy is building, and if you look at the automation of these, when I'm building up to a drop, the automation of the shakers and hi-hats need to be consistent until about those last 4 counts, and then just spike it up. Like have it be like really gradual, and then like listen to when it starts spiking up. You can feel it. Because you want it to just like, I'm just gonna solo these by themselves so you can feel really consistent. And then just like all of a sudden it goes up 14,000 frequencies, like full frequency. And that just almost makes it sound like one of those sweeps or crashes or something that you can find in Splice, but you're doing it yourself with a shaker that you're already using, which is great. So for the final build-up, you can notice I pause the first couple counts and I don't start the drop later. The drop is started. I just basically like put the drop there and then eliminated all the instruments for the first count. So you pretty much can't hear the bass, like nothing comes through just for the first count. But the drop doesn't start here, if that makes sense. Like it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, like I just eliminated all of the parts for one. Because sometimes what you can do is you could put a gap between the build-up and the drop, and then when the drop starts, that's actually like count 1. And for this, it's not. Count 1 is just silent. I don't know, I just felt like it was summery festival vibes if I just turn the music off for a second and then turn it back on. They do that a lot. Like, everybody ready? You know, that's kind of what, I don't know, just whatever. I'll be like. Okay, so for this final drop, more energy in this drop for sure. I definitely added some stuff to the second half. The first drop was only 32 counts. Second drop is 64. Let's see. Yeah, second drop is 64 counts. The reason the first drop is only 32 counts is because it just makes sense to just keep the song going. It's like, hey, we get it, you know? We get it, it's sick, like what's next? And then the energy's like carried through. I did have a 64 count drop for the first one and it felt too long. So you just gotta trust your gut with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I think there's a helicopter. So, okay, this drop is 64 counts and it makes sense. If I had this drop at 32 counts, you would be like, where's the rest? The first drop, it made sense to have it be 32 counts. That's not always the case in all songs, but in this one, there you go. First half of the drop is just pretty much the same thing as the first drop, except I added even more bass. There is now, in the first drop there were 3 basses, there is now a 4th, just to add energy. In my opinion, it adds energy. And then the second half of the drop, I just reintroduced the vocal melody again. Keeps the energy going, keeps it interesting for the last 32 counts. And then lots of fade outs into the end. So let me solo out what I used as a transition. We got this, we got this, we got this. Ooh, clap. And then I also took the kick and went do-do-do-do. Oh, it looks like I added claps in there too. So it's clap, kick, clap, clap. Yeah. So that kind of like lets you know that the drop's over for some reason. One little melody pluck to just throw in there. And then I kind of let the song take its course. The things that I keep. I keep this. And then the drone sound that I made. A little bit of bass. The kick. And all of these things. Oh, and this. And a lot of times for the end of songs, you don't really need a kick going all the way to the end of the song, but the drop has such high energy. If I just eliminate the kick, it's too big of a difference. Like, here's what it sounds like when there's no kick. Like, it's pretty, but it is not actually necessary. Like, it doesn't flow very well. I like the kick. I really do. Like, it keeps the energy, but also like tells you the song's almost over. Because you just know. You know that there's not going to be a third pin drop. At least I hope you know. And then I just kind of let it fade out. There's a couple things. Let's see what I automated here. There's a couple of things that I intentionally shut down and turned off. One thing, I completely turned this bass off. It fully fades out. The other one fades to about negative 13 decibels. Just kind of like quiets the bass so that when he says like leave a light on, there's no bass. Like hardly any. So that is pretty much it for this song. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this helped in some way. If not, just say hi just cause. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do whatever, share it with your friends, show your mom, whatever you want.